Okay, looks like the join numbers have started to slow down, so we'll begin. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being a part of today's presentation. I'm excited to share an overview of the Fostering Success Program and the impact that it continues to have across the universities of Wisconsin. Today, we're going to walk through what the program looks like in practice, how it's grown, and most importantly, the difference it's making in the lives of independent students across our campuses. There will be a Q&A section in the chat, so if you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to add your questions and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. And then the webinar will be recorded today. My name is Tawney Latona, and I am the Fostering Success Coordinator at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, where we run the largest program in Wisconsin with around 300 students. I also serve as the technical consultant for the Universities of Wisconsin Fostering Success programs, helping other campuses launch their own programs, and I lead our statewide Fostering Success community of practice where campuses come together to share best practices. Joining me today is Jessica Brooks-Consolatti, Fostering Success Program Manager at the University of Wisconsin Stout. Jessica brings a personal and deep understanding of an authentic perspective through her lived experience in foster care and adoption. We're going to get us started by walking through what grounds fostering success and the mission of the program. The Universities of Wisconsin Fostering Success programs are really centered on one core idea, making sure that independent students have the support that they need, not just to get to college, but to truly succeed once they get here. We do that by providing individualized guidance and consulting with students about resources that may meet their unique situations. Independence includes students who have experienced foster care, those who are unaccompanied and experiencing homelessness, as well as students who are orphaned or in legal guardianship. What's important here is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Every student's story is different, and so our tailored unique situations must come together to meet their needs, both academically, personally, and professionally. Ultimately, our goal is to create a strong sense of belonging and stability and an opportunity so that students can focus on their education and their future. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk a little bit about the purpose and the need for the program.
Hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Jess Brooks-Consolatti, and I'm the program manager at UW Stout's Fostering Success program. My professional and educational background is in social work, and I myself am a former foster youth and an adoptee. So this work is deeply personal for me. So I just want to thank everyone for coming and for letting us tell you a little bit about our program. But you may be wondering why a specific program for this population is necessary when foster youth are eligible for different resources through the state. And there are already campus support programs available for other underrepresented groups, such as low-income and first-generation students. But when we look at the data, it actually shows that students who experience foster care have some of the lowest college graduation rates of any group. Nationally, only about 8 to 12% will obtain a 2 or 4-year degree. As you can see in the graph on this slide, both their persistence and graduation rates are significantly lower than that of low-income and first-generation college students. This is because students who experience foster care face a variety of unique barriers. Unfortunately, we don't have time to get into all of those barriers today, but a few primary ones are that they are approximately twice as likely to experience housing and food insecurity compared to their peers. They experience higher rates of mental health diagnoses due to childhood trauma. They tend to lack a strong support system, and they are often told that graduating and attending college is quote unquote unrealistic. Now, there are resources to them available through the state, which we'll talk more about later, but these are often highly restricted or insufficient. For example, Wisconsin has the Brighter Star program, which offers $5,000 a year to college students who aged out of foster care at age 18. There's also different transition programs that helps adults transition out of foster care. But again, these are only offered to students who are in care on their 18th birthday. There are so many students who don't fall into that exact category, but still have similar support needs. And even for the students that are eligible for those programs, the support isn't always sufficient. This is why programs like Fostering Success are needed to help fill in the gaps. We can provide resources and support to a much wider group of students and give them a stronger sense of belonging on campus, which studies have shown to be crucial for student success. In other states that have implemented campus support programs similar to fostering success, studies have shown clear evidence that they increase the odds of student persistence and graduation. There's a popular quote among educators that says, "Access without support is not opportunity." Tawney and I clearly have seen the truth of this statement, and that is why we believe in the necessity and the effectiveness of the fostering success programs here in Wisconsin. I'm proud to say that the very first fostering success program started at UW Stout back in 2013. Back then, we operated on a kind of combination of donations, small community grants, and the contributions of a few part time staff members. But even with limited resources, we were able to support dozens of college students and help them graduate. And we also received the Board of Regents Diversity Award back in 2020. Governor Evers learned about our program during a visit to UW Stout, which inspired him to propose funding through the state budget for fostering success programs, which then led to the creation of all the different programs we have in the state today. In the next section, we're going to do an overview of where our programs are located, who we serve, and what services we offer. So there are currently 11 total fostering success programs across the universities of Wisconsin, with the newest one being UW-Madison, which started back in fall 2025. The only UW schools that currently don't have a program are UW-Oshkosh and UW-Superior, but we are certainly hoping in the near future that they are able to establish programs as well. We know that this is a lot of information to remember, so we do just want to point out that we have a Universities of Wisconsin website where you can find info about each campus's program all in one spot. So on the website, you'll find a list of contacts for each campus, links to each Fostering Success website at each university. You can also find our annual reports, which contain data points like our persistence and graduation rates, GPA, how many students we serve. So if you're interested in that, that will also be available on the website. If you're able to, we highly recommend either like bookmarking or favoriting the website for easy access in the future. And now I'm going to turn over to Tawney so she can tell you more about our program eligibility and services.
Thanks, Jessica. As we think about who fostering success can support, our goal is to be inclusive as possible for students who have experienced significant challenges in their life. When you consider who to refer to us, the best reference guide is really to look to see if they're independent on their FAFSA due to their parental situation. Then most likely they qualify for fostering success. We serve students who have experienced foster care or ward of the court after the age of 13. This is one of the primary populations that we focus on, though it's important to note that some campuses may not have age restrictions and may also support students who are adopted as teens, although this isn't the case for all campuses. We also support students who have completed a dependency override through their financial aid office. So this can happen at any point through the financial aid process, whether it's their first year or second year or third year and beyond. So we definitely like to get connected with those students whenever we can to support them throughout their time. In addition, students with permanent legal guardianship, meaning that they've been court appointed a guardian who is not their parent, and those in kinship care are eligible for support. Other eligible groups include emancipated minors, as well as students who are orphaned but never adopted. We also recognize that students whose parents are both incarcerated may also face similar barriers and need additional support. And finally, we support students who are unaccompanied and homeless or are self-supporting and at risk of homelessness. Overall, this criteria helps us to ensure that we're reaching the students who may have experienced significant instability and can benefit from the additional resources and community support. Though each program may look a little different, our services share 4 core elements. The first is campus connection. Students are linked with that single point of contact that we mentioned, who can be the contact as they go and look for resources. Next is the basic needs support. We help students facing food insecurity, housing challenges, and assist them in applying for health insurance or renewing that process. Another area is professional development. From internships to undergraduate research, we connect students with experiences that help strengthen their career pathways. And last is individualized support. Each student's journey is a little bit unique and they face individual challenges. So we meet them where they are and address their specific needs. Let me walk you through a comparison of the campuses and the services that we offer across the system. First, there's a shared foundation of services that all fostering success programs and offices offer in the University of Wisconsin system. Please note that UW-Madison just opened up their program in the fall. And so our newest campus may still be working on getting some of these things in place. Every campus has a single point of contact, and it's incredibly important because it connects the students with one person that can then help them get connected to other resources and help them navigate that process. Every campus doesn't have doesn't have a fostering success program like Superior and Oshkosh, still have one single point of contact that serves foster youth and helps them guide them to resources. Another key service is FAFSA assistance. Many of our students are considered independent and may need to have documentation or support, so we help them through that process, whether it's finding out what court to go to get that legal guardianship documentation, or helping them connect with their homeless liaison so they can get the documentation that they need for being unaccompanied and at risk of homelessness. We also offer supply pantries, though they may look a little bit different on each campus. Some, like ours at UW-Milwaukee, are small but effective and regularly stocked, while others have much larger spaces that are open access spaces where students can just stop by and pick up what they may need. Emergency grants are also a critical resource. Students rely on these frequently, and funding may come directly from the Fostering Success Office itself, or it may come from the broader office on campus, like the Dean of Students or a scholarships program. Additionally, Fostering Success scholarships may also be available. Some of our campuses have those within our programs. Across campus, we also offer a wide range of social events. This includes things like meaningful meals, one of my favorite events where students come together to have a meal together and they learn about various topics of discussion, as well as even hosting events through our Fostering Success student organizations. These opportunities help bridge the connection and build those connections that are so important to our community. Most campuses offer peer mentors, and they can be within the Fostering Success program or through a campus-wide initiative. Additionally, students have access to adult mentors or coaches. College success coaches are incredibly helpful at providing the support that students may need throughout their time at the universities. Some of these are provided by Fostering Success staff, while others are through other campus partnerships. We also assist students with applying for benefits like Badger Care or Food Share, and we help coordinate housing support throughout the year. Summer housing options and costs may vary on each campus, but the support is consistently available. Now, in addition to these shared services that all of our campuses have, we also have the flexibility to tailor our programs for our individual campuses to support our students and offer that community support that might also be available. Many campuses offer summer bridge programs through partnerships with other departments. So for example, at UW-Milwaukee, we coordinate bridge programs through MKE Scholars and also through student support services in the Trio pre-college area. This provides transitional support for our incoming students. Some offerings may be more unique. For example, at our campus at Milwaukee, we partner with an organization called For Goodness Cakes. And this provides a birthday cake for our foster youth through local volunteers. This program is currently only available in Milwaukee, so any bakers out there, if you want to join For Goodness Cakes and spread to other parts of the state, I'm sure that would be well appreciated. And we celebrate students' birthdays by giving them not only the cake that's made, but also a birthday gift. And one of the things that always touches my heart is that some students, when they come to pick up their birthday cake, say it's the first time anyone's ever made them a birthday cake. It's really great. Many of our campuses feature lounges or student lounges, spaces where we have free snacks, coffee, tea, hot cocoa, along with things like free printing, massage chairs, and even light therapy lamps. Some campuses like ours offer unique features, like a cutting garden where students can take home their own personalized plant, and lounges also provide things like books, mindfulness tools, games, and other resources that support their academic success and their overall well-being. Additional support on campuses may include things like career closets, where students can access professional clothing, and cap and gown programs to help cover graduation costs. Overall, while each campus has a unique approach, our goal remains the same: to provide consistent, meaningful support while also creating spaces and opportunities to reflect on the students' needs. Now that we've shared a little bit about the background of the program, let's take a look at how it works in practice. A critical part is early identification. This year, the Universities of Wisconsin admission application added a question where students can self-identify, which helps connect them to us right away. We also identify students through the FAFSA data, referrals from faculty, staff, and partnerships with community organizations. The earlier we can connect, the faster we can help students with admissions, scholarships, and financial aid. And this is where you come in. Please join us in helping us get those referrals as early as possible. Some of the collaborations that we have are really key to the success of our programs. On campus, we partner with housing, multicultural centers, LGBTQ resource centers, first generation programs, and academic support offices. Our Fostering Success community of practice, in which our fostering success coordinators meet monthly, is great for discussing ideas and best practices. And statewide, we have collaborations with community organizations that work with foster youth and homeless youth. And we have started collaborations and hope to partner even more with the Wisconsin Technical College System and the Wisconsin Association for Independent Colleges and Universities to expand these types of programs throughout our state. Nationally, we're part of a program called Fostering Academic Achievement Nationwide Network, otherwise known as FAN, which connects us to similar statewide network programs across the country to share the most recent developments throughout the United States. This slide really highlights the additional funding and donations that help support our program beyond state funding. We receive funding through generous monetary donations through Fostering Success University Foundation accounts. So generous donors can donate funds to help support our programs. Campus grants help sponsor specific programs, and we have community grants like the one pictured here, is some of the materials that Delta Kappa Gamma, a group of educators in Ozaukee County, donated. They provided items for 3 meaningful meals that we hosted at UW-Milwaukee using a literacy grant that they were awarded. The members prepared the meals and came and served them to our students, and they provided the academic, financial, and legal literacy items that you see pictured here, like a planner and some financial literacy books and some organizers for some of the legal documents and such. And this was a great series of events that we did with DKG. We also utilize Amazon wish lists, giving individuals an easy way to donate specific items that we need on our campuses. We have some seasonal efforts because we know winter's cold here. And so we especially find these important for helping outfit students for the colder months. In addition, we benefit with strong partnerships and with community organizations and local businesses, and have a huge network of very generous university faculty and staff that also can make contributions. All of these contributions play a critical role in helping us provide the extra resources and removing the barriers for students. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk a little bit about prospective students and the services that we can offer while they're still in high school or transitioning from a transfer institution. And Jessica, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. First and foremost, we can arrange campus visits for high school students so that they can come to the fostering success office, ask questions, meet our staff, and start receiving tailored support. We can also arrange virtual visits if that's easier, or if you're in a faraway part of the state. If a student is coming to campus for like a full campus tour through the admissions office, they can request to add an additional meeting with the fostering success staff, either at the end of the day or during a break in the schedule. So we highly recommend doing that. We can also offer coaching for the admissions process, assistance with the FAFSA, as mentioned earlier. We can help with scholarship searches and applications, and we can do campus and community resources or referrals to campus and community resources when necessary. And last but not least, we do offer 2 summer camps at UW Stout and UWEC, which I will talk a little bit more about on the next slide. So our summer camps for this year are completely free and will be offered at UW Stout and UW Eau Claire on June 11th and June 18th, respectively. They are day camps, so they're relatively low commitment compared to like an overnight camp. And they include a lot of great activities such as an admissions presentation and campus tour, information about our program and other support offices that they could take advantage of on campus, information about how to pay for college, how to get connected to state resources that might be available to them. And there'll also be a Q&A with a panel of current fostering success students, so the campers can really get an idea of what college life is like. And of course, we have a variety of other fun games and icebreakers throughout the day to keep them engaged as well. We will be sending a copy of the slides as well as camp flyers to you guys afterwards, so you'll have access to these registration links. So if you have any students or foster families that you know that might be interested, please make sure to let them know. FAFSA guidance is another important service that we can provide for high schoolers, but we also wanted to take the time in this presentation to equip you guys with some information and tools so that you can help students with FAFSA completion as well. Our number one piece of advice is to complete the FAFSA as early as possible. FAFSA applications don't close for a really long time. You can technically fill them out well into the actual school year. So that sometimes leaves students with the understanding that maybe they can just wait and drag their feet and just submit it whenever. And we want to make it very clear that that's not a good idea. Most universities and some states even have what they call a priority deadline, which means that you can actually lose out on certain types of aid if you don't submit it before the deadline. The state of Wisconsin does not have an official priority deadline, but individual universities usually do. So it's really important that students know those dates ahead of time. Also, submitting the FAFSA before those deadlines ensures that they can remain eligible for other needs-based scholarships offered at each campus. FAFSA always opens on October 1st, so if you want to just play it safe, a good rule of thumb is to get it done sometime in October if possible. The next important part of FAFSA completion is making sure that they fill it out as an independent student, as Tawney mentioned earlier. Students who are designated as independent only have to submit information about themselves and not parents or anyone else. So that means only their income is taken into consideration, which typically means that they become eligible for the maximum possible amount of financial aid. So it's really important. But who is considered independent for FAFSA purposes? FAFSA splits this up into 3 different categories. The first is personal circumstances, which is where students who are orphans, emancipated minors, those in legal guardianship, or ward of the court or foster youth after the age of 13 fall into. If students were adopted from foster care prior to the age of 13, unfortunately, they would not qualify for independent status through FAFSA. But if it was after 13, then they would. Other circumstances is the category in which students experiencing homelessness fall under. Unaccompanied and homeless youth, of course, you're probably familiar with. If students are homeless under the McKinney-Vento guidelines, then they can apply for FAFSA and be eligible for for independent status that way. But there's also that second part of the definition that's really important, especially for college students, the self-supporting and at risk of homelessness. We often get questions from folks saying like, can they really count as homeless if they're going to be moving into dorm housing or they're currently in the dorms? And the rule of thumb is if something were to happen to the dorm housing for some reason, would they have anywhere else to go? Do they have any other support that they could fall back on? And if the answer to that question is no, then they would fall into this category and they would be eligible for independent status. The last category that FAFSA has for independence is unusual circumstances, which is kind of a catch-all. This is where students fall into who have incarcerated parents, students who are fleeing an abusive household, if they're victims of human trafficking, if they have refugee or asylee status, or if they're just otherwise unable to contact parents, they would fall into this category. For this, we want to point out a really helpful resource called the FAFSA prototype that not everyone knows exists. So the FAFSA prototype is basically like a fake or a practice version of the FAFSA. So if you're a staff member and you want to like see what the actual FAFSA application looks like as if you were a student, the FAFSA prototype allows you to do that without having to actually like make an account or put in any real information. So this is a tool that I've used many, many times with students and other staff members to show them what to expect. It really demystifies the process, and it also allows some privacy if you have a student that wants to walk through the process but doesn't want to like tell you like the really personal information. This is a really great tool. So yeah, we're going to walk you through a little bit what it looks like. We're not going to do the full application, don't worry, but we're just going to get up to the point where it asks questions related to independent status. It'll pop up with this window that says it's a limited prototype. So just keep in mind you might experience glitches or some features that would be available on the actual real form wouldn't be available here just because it's a prototype. So that kind of thing is to be expected. We'll click out of this window right here. And then this is the homepage for the prototype where you can choose like what test user you want to do. You can either practice as like a younger student or a little older, non-traditional student. If you scroll down, you can also choose scenarios to see what it would look like if a parent's filling it out or a student spouse, which is less likely with the populations we serve, but is still a really helpful resource for staff working with a variety of students. But for our purposes, we're going to scroll back up and click on Raya, who was born in 2003. And then this is exactly what it's going to look like for the students moving forward. So they're going to log in. It'll, of course, for the prototype, it's all fake. They'll select start new form. These steps are kind of easy. They're going to be a student filling it out. They're going to enter their basic information, which, of course, the prototype autofills for you, which is really nice. And then it'll make you enter in a random date for this residency question. But when you're working through this, you can put any numbers in there and it'll let you continue. This window is where they ask your consent to take data from the IRS, like tax information. This is something that was implemented a few years ago, so it's new in the FAFSA. This makes it so people don't actually have to enter their own tax information. They just take it from the IRS. But it's really important that you say approve. Otherwise, you cannot submit the FAFSA without saying approve. So approve, it'll have a loading screen, and then hopefully it'll say success. We have your tax info. And then here is the personal circumstances section that is crucial for our students. So in the beginning, there's a couple more things we have to click through. Most likely our students are single. Click through that. First year freshmen, and they likely do not have a bachelor's degree already. And then here is the first crucial category, the personal circumstances. So you can see a very long list here. If any of these circumstances apply to the student that you're working with, they only have to select one of these boxes. However, there are the two other categories, so don't panic if they don't fall under these boxes yet, but if they do, just make sure to check. Because of the limitations of this prototype, we're just going to click none so that we can see the other options. This is the student homelessness section. So if they are currently homeless or they expect to be self-supporting and at risk of homelessness once they graduate high school, you'll select yes here. But again, we're going to hit no just so we can see the other options. And then unusual circumstances, it explains what that means and who qualifies. And it also has a little notification about what would be considered proof for these circumstances. But again, if your student does qualify under this, this is where they would hit yes. And we're just going to toggle back one more time just so we can show you what happens when you do hit yes on student homelessness. It'll prompt one other section where it'll talk about which office will be able to contribute proof of this status. This is something Tawney is going to talk about in a little bit, so we will come back to that, but we just want to show you what that looks like. We'll hit continue, or we'll just select yes for one of these. And then you should get to the screen where it says independent student. So this is the golden ticket. This is what you want to see before you move forward for the student. And the rest is really just very simple. The FAFSA is actually much easier for independent students, which is a win. So from there, you just submit information about which college you want to send it to, and et cetera. Another important thing to note is that you don't actually have to have the documentation when you fill out the FAFSA application. They just need to make sure that they have this independent status. Then they submit it, and then the documentation process happens after. The student will be considered provisionally independent after they submit, and then it begins the process to request the documentation from you. And then once that documentation is provided to the financial aid office, then they will be able to receive the maximum amount of financial aid. But yeah, this is what this part of the FAFSA looks like. It's a really great tool. We highly recommend that you kind of play around with it and use it with your students. But we'll exit out of here, and then Tawney is going to tell you a little bit more about that documentation process and the proof for independence.
All right. So proof of independence can be done in a variety of different ways. Court records are very common, and so are other legal documents. The student may need to have an interview with the financial aid administrator and do some paperwork, maybe provide a student statement or even a third-party statement, kind of confirming their experience. And then we have unaccompanied youth verification determination letters, and those can be done through a variety of different folks. So who can specifically do those? It can be the school district, a homeless liaison or designee, a director or designee of an emergency or transitional program that assists people who are experiencing homelessness, a director or a designee of a project supported by the federal TRIO and Gear Up programs, and then a college financial aid administrator. So sometimes when we meet with students, you may not know if they are going to qualify as unaccompanied homeless youth. And so there is this determination tool I'm going to share with you today. It's through Schoolhouse Connection, and they offer this tool to kind of help determine if a student may qualify. It's not like 100% yes, the student qualifies, but it has you answer some questions to help figure out what to do next. So the student can come on here, and there's 11 questions. Are you 24 years or older? We're going to answer no today. Are you currently at a public high school? We're going to answer yes. Have you been identified as an unaccompanied homeless youth by a high school counselor? This section right here, if you answer yes, it's going to then give instructions that you are identified as an unaccompanied homeless youth by your high school. And you can click here to find your McKinney-Vento liaison. They have a directory by state, so you can easily find who that person may be. It also has a sample of the determination letter that you can give to that liaison, and then they can fill that out. And these samples are really quite helpful because it has instructions and they're very simple letters. So you can click on the one for this upcoming year, and it gives instructions on how to make a copy specifically for the student. It's pretty basic information: student name, date of birth, if they have an ID number for the university, and then if they are unaccompanied homeless youth, or if they are self-supporting and unaccompanied, and check whichever box is correct. So it's a pretty simple process. The person filling out the form then indicates their role and signs and provides their contact information. And it does recap the same thing that's on the FAFSA that we saw earlier, the different categories of people who can make those determinations, and you select the correct one for the person making that determination. So going back here, we also have the ability to take them right to FAFSA, to complete a FAFSA right away. If we go back here and we end up clicking no, like they haven't been identified by their high school, then it's going to take us to this next question. About does anybody know about your situation, essentially? And if the answer is no, then it asks, do you live with your parents? And if they answer no, it then takes them to an area where they ask about their housing. And it asks, are you staying with a friend? Are you couch surfing? Are you living in a residence hall or dorm and would otherwise have no safe place to go? If they answer yes to that situation, it's then going to take them to a question asking, can any of these people identify you as such? And if the answer is no, they haven't met with anybody to do that. Then they're going to ask some other clarifying questions. Are you, as of today, are you staying in one of the following situations? Like, are you in a motel? Are you couch surfing? Are you staying with friends? All of the different risk factors. And if the answer is yes, it will then take them to instructions, and it says that you should request a determination from your financial aid office because you are in a homeless or at risk of homeless situation. And it takes them to the FAFSA website and also helps them answer questions about FAFSA. And you can always restart or go back to the different sections that you might want to change to adjust if you're wondering about specific student situations. So this is just a really helpful tool to kind of figure out, okay, what should I do next with this student in regards to FAFSA? Now, going back to our presentation, we do have the sample determination letter right here. Oops. Oh, no. There we go. Let's find it back. Okay. Sorry about this. There we go. We did want to put the determination letter in the presentation itself so that you have the sample determination right here. So you didn't have to go through the entire homeless determination tool in order to find that sample determination letter. So if you needed to click to access that, that can be done right here with this QR code or with one click from our slides that we'll be sending out. Right. So up next, we wanted to talk about some funding opportunities that are available specific to this population. Like we said, scholarships may be available on the individual campuses, but in the state of Wisconsin, we have the Wisconsin Education and Training Voucher for those youth who are in foster care. And this is specific and it's very tailored. So not every foster youth is going to qualify for this program. So it's a $5,000 a year for post-secondary education. It can also cover things like housing and food and other expenses that the student might need based on the discretion of their independent living person. And it has expenses such would be for like other training programs outside of the university system that might be available as well. And so students are eligible if they aged out of foster care, of course, but also if they were in foster care after the age of 16. And so it's a very small window of students that actually qualify for this program. But in addition to the funding, they also provide an independent living programming and caseworker. So they get support as well as the funds. And so this is incredibly helpful for students who qualify. Another one that I wanted to bring to your attention is the Schoolhouse Connections Scholarship Program, the program that also hosts the links that we just mentioned. And this program is a really great scholarship initiative. It includes other things beyond the scholarship. It has some travel as well as support and mentorship and other things available. And it's for students who've experienced homelessness within the last 6 years. So it can qualify for quite a few students, not just those who are unaccompanied, but any youth who has experienced homelessness through like the defined McKinney-Vento definition. So it's a pretty broad-based scholarship. Now, there is a trick, and that is that students need to apply in their junior year of high school. So it's much earlier than most scholarships. So we wanted to bring this to your attention. If you have juniors who've experienced homelessness in the last 6 years, they may want to consider applying for this scholarship. It's a up to $2,500 scholarship and up to $100 a month in a stipend, as well as those other supports and travel that I mentioned as well. All right. Now, this is, if you take anything from our presentation, this is something that I really am passionate about, and that is the early timeline for seniors. So seniors are going to have a lot to do, especially in the fall semester. And a lot of these things are tied to funds that they'll get. And being independent, the students need as many funds as they can get in order to be supported. And so there's a couple of things that we wanted to mention regarding the timeline. It's earlier than everybody thinks. So we start the application August 1st. The application goes live for the universities of Wisconsin. And we'd love for students to all be applied to their colleges of choice through the universities of Wisconsin between August and September. And the reason for that is that in October, we're going to be doing the FAFSA. And then in the system of independent students, they often have to provide those documentation, the things from the courthouse or other documents that they might need. And that takes a little bit of time. And the one key area here is the scholarships. And scholarships are going to start as early as having deadlines. At UW-Milwaukee, our deadline is November 1st for priority scholarships. And so if a student applies in August, they're admitted, they do their FAFSA in October, they get all their documents in, and they have submitted their scholarship applications before November 1st, then they're much more likely to get additional funds. And so this is incredibly important because there is a gap in funding that, people often think, oh, well, foster youth, they've got everything paid for, they'll be good to go. But that is not necessarily the case. Our students see those gaps in funds. Tuition is often covered by grants, or in our case at Milwaukee, Tuition Promise. So tuition is typically not the problem. It's the housing, food, living expenses, and other things that students often need. And without scholarships, students may end up having to pay for these living expenses, most likely by taking out loans. And some students, if they don't get scholarships, even have a shortfall, even after they've accepted all the loans, they may still owe some funds. And so it's really important to get as many scholarships as we can for these students. So the earlier we can have them apply, complete their FAFSA, turn in their documents, and apply for scholarships, the better off we'll be. So please encourage your students to go through those processes. But the number one thing is we can help them. So send them to us, refer them to us. We'll help them through this process. And we can help you as well as you're supporting your students through this process too. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk a little bit about outcomes that we've seen over the last 3 years.
Yeah, so in terms of outcomes, we have several different data points that we wanted to highlight. First, we served a total of 598 students across the state last year alone. And we have a retention rate of 83%, which is 6% higher than the freshman to sophomore retention rate reported at the same universities. And as of the end of last school year, we have produced no less than 109 graduates since 2022, and those numbers have definitely and will definitely increase by the end of this school year. Additionally, we have observed a consistent growth in the number of students served by our programs each year. As you can see, we have more than doubled that number since state funding was established. And lastly, we cannot overstate the qualitative impact that fostering success programs have had on our students. We give them the opportunity to join a community of students and sometimes staff that share similar lived experiences, which builds a sense of belonging and tells students that they are not alone. As I mentioned earlier, we know that this sense of belonging is crucial for student persistence rates, and it's a big part of why our programs are so effective. We'd like to finish our presentation today by leaving you with a quote from a recent Fostering Success graduate from UW-Eau Claire, so feel free to read that at your leisure. But now we would love to open it up to questions. So we will open the Q&A tab here. Okay, we see a first three. So the first one is, do you help pay for students to do a campus visit if that is a barrier, or help them get on campus? So currently, right now, at least for Stout and I think many other campuses, we don't have a way of supporting that. That's something, especially for the summer camp, that's something I hope to establish in the future. But as far as like direct payments to students, like in the forms of emergency assistance or, that sort of thing, that's often only reserved for like enrolled students. But Tawney?
Yeah, so as far as what services we have available, like the most of them are for enrolled students. I work specifically with high school students as well. While they're in high school, I meet with them monthly and we go over all the next steps that they have to complete. So once a month, we do a virtual meeting and guide them through. But we don't provide like financial services until they're actually students here. One of the things that we do is we help them plan in advance. So, like for example, I had a student last week who is using their family's veterans benefits, and she didn't have a computer, and so was able to connect with another office to get a computer for her to be able to use this fall. But we're not able to physically give it to her until she actually is here in the fall.
But yeah, basically virtual visits in that case, we can pretty much give the same amount of information and answer all the questions virtually. But you can also ask high schools as well to see if there's any kind of support in that way or transportation happening. But next question. We have many youth leaving here that pursue post-secondary education at UW technical colleges. Do any of these institutions offer FS program services? Tawney, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, so there's a couple of programs that are offering support for youth in foster care specifically, but have expanded a little bit of their support to other youth who are independent. They are in the piloted stage, so not all of the technical colleges are offering them. However, we do have a contact for each campus that's in the technical college system as well as in the private college system. So I will take a moment to see if I can pull that up and to share with you as well. That has the single point of contact, just like the Universities of Wisconsin system had prior to fostering success programs. Those programs also have those same similar single point of contacts. So I will look for that while Jessica answers the next couple questions.
And about the tech school thing as well, the state funding that we currently receive for FS programming right now is only for the UW system. So if that's certainly something we would advocate for in the future is additional funding for tech schools, but we encourage advocacy around the state for that as well. Next question is, do you ever present at high schools? I certainly do, certainly within Western Wisconsin. I'm also from the Madison area, so if you guys reach out to the Madison campus and they don't have availability and you're looking for someone to come down there, I'd definitely be more than willing. We can do virtual presentations as well, but if you are interested, just reach out to the FS contact that's in the campus closest to you and ask if they're willing to come and visit. Next question is, what is the average amount of time students take to graduate from college, 4 years or more? If you're asking specifically for foster youth, it's a very difficult data point to parse. Generally speaking, students with foster care experiences are known to take longer, but we don't currently have like super specific data for Wisconsin or anything like that. But typically the research that looks at persistence and graduation rates of foster youth nationally look at a window of about 4 to 6 years. And it is known that very generally speaking, it is more likely for them to take longer, which makes sense without the barriers they experience and the roadblocks that happen along the way. But we're certainly hoping to, and we have reduced, that time to completion with our programming. Do you have anything else to add for that, Tawney?
No, but I do have the link for the contacts. So in our on this website, so dcf.wisconsin.gov/ys/college, you're going to find the campus contacts for foster youth. So you can click on this link here, and it has the Wisconsin technical colleges. The UW system is going to take them to our program website, and then the Wisconsin Association for Independent Colleges and Universities. So this will have the contacts for each of those campuses across Wisconsin.
Next question is, do students need to go through the court system to have legal guardianship? I'm just wondering about students who are living with aunt, grandma, etc., but have not become legal guardians yet. So this is a great question, and this is actually something that will vary from campus to campus. But for FAFSA purposes, though, it does have to be, I believe, court-ordered and permanent, right, Tawney?
Correct. It needs to be permanent, not temporary. So
Correct.
that's often a question that students have. So permanent legal guardianship for the FAFSA. The unusual circumstances or other circumstances that students might have can be selected on the FAFSA on that third question that we reviewed. And then they can have a conversation with a financial aid representative about making that maybe an unaccompanied youth determination, depending on the student situation. It really does vary based on their relationship with their parents. So something to have a conversation with financial aid about.
However, for fostering success purposes, this may vary from campus to campus. So at the larger campuses like UW Milwaukee, of course, Tawney has over 300 students and she's just one staff member. So unfortunately, they have to strictly go by FAFSA guidelines, and that's the only students they can accept is students who are independent on the FAFSA. For me, I'm at Stout. I'm at a much smaller university. We have a much smaller program. I have the flexibility to take in some additional students. I do accept informal situations like this because we do recognize that they often have similar needs and support needs. So that might be something that you want to reach out to the campus if the student is interested in and ask to see if they would at least qualify for the services that Fostering Success offers, even if they're not eligible for independent status through FAFSA. Next question is, if an 18-year-old senior left home and won't go home and is staying on their friends' couches, can we consider them a McKinney-Vento? This student will be going to UW school in the fall. So this student would definitely fall into what we consider the self-supporting and at risk of homelessness category. So when they're filling out the FAFSA, they can absolutely select yes for the question. As far as the proof goes for this, if they didn't fit exactly the McKinney-Vento during high school and can't get a letter from a school employee, they can do an interview with the financial aid counselor at their school, or if they're like in the TRIO student support services program at college, which works with first-gen and low-income students, a director of that program can provide documentation to their financial aid office to prove it. You can go back to the slides that we had earlier for a list of everyone who is qualified to give that. But yes, they would absolutely be eligible for FAFSA and for Fostering Success.
And
Yeah.
as students are providing documentation for like maybe a determination with financial aid, and they have to, write a student statement and provide third-party documentation, we can help them in that process too. So they can feel free to reach out to us to have a conversation or to even assist them as they're piecing all those materials together.
So last question that we're seeing is how do you manage the gap between high school to college? I noted the Schoolhouse Connection Scholarship Program should be applied to by junior year. Is there a way you are finding access to support students before applying for the freshman year of college? For us, we're definitely willing to meet with high schoolers of any age. Like Tawney said, the earlier the better. So if they'd like to set up a meeting or you as a staff member would like to set up a meeting with one of us to talk through their options and what support they need, we definitely encourage them to. And there are other scholarships available. And you also asked about like the gap between high school to college. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the housing services that can be offered at different campuses. Like Tawny mentioned earlier, it can vary from campus to campus, but all the UW schools have some option for students as long as they're enrolled for the fall to move into the dorm housing early. There may be additional requirements. Some campuses require students to take a summer class or have a summer campus job. Other campuses like Stout luckily don't have any of those requirements. You just have to be coming to campus for the fall and you can move in even as early as May if there's concerns about gaps in housing. But hopefully I answered your question, Avery. If you want any clarification, let me know.
We do help students find those types of employment that they might need if they're coming early. So I have a few students that always come each summer prior to the start of their freshman year, especially those coming directly out of foster care. They need a place to live over the summer and they need a job and employment. And so we assist them in that process. And students can start working with me as early as August 1st of their senior year. So we get started when the application opens. That's when we start our monthly meetings with youth who are independent. And so they could have, met with me for a full year even before they start at the university, just making sure they get through all of their next steps and are prepared, not only for all the college next steps, but also things that are important, like have you had your dentist appointment before you start college? Or do you need to set up health insurance? Or have you thought about what documents you might need as an adult? And do you have those all together? Or can we help you get those? So those are all things that we help them through.
And they can also come to one of our summer camps too, if that's an
Yes.
option. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A. If you have any last one, please plop them in there now. We only have about 2 minutes left, but otherwise we want to just thank you all for being here. Our emails are very open, so please, if you have any questions at all, just send them our way. And then we will also be sending you the recording of this webinar, the slides, and then some additional resources like a copy of the senior timeline and the flyers for the summer camps that are coming up. So thank you
We
all.
really appreciate all the support that you offer our students. Thank you so much for your help.